So as Project Gravator like really started building up, we had to get the right equipment to film everything we had to do, because we had to get specific type of cinecams that would have been able to provide the right results for the movie and the right visuals that we needed to have, which would have matched up also with some of our VFX components in the film, the right lighting equipment that we use obviously in the studio, or we would have brought out to the desert or out in the mountains of Oregon. The drone, the mics, everything had to be carefully selected so that we would have everything we needed on the fly wherever we would go to film.
Oh,
So this is something that we had to film obviously here in the studio. We filmed out in the mountains of Oregon, in the deserts of Nevada, in Las Vegas, at Bob's house. I mean, there was so many different places, and we had to travel with all this equipment. So the selection of the equipment was something that took a little bit of time. Luckily, I have amazing people on the team that were able to help. This is the first time I did that, so I learned a lot about what kind of equipment was needed.
This is us not having a life right now, okay? Yeah.
It's good. We're almost there.
We're almost there. We're getting there.
Another big task was bringing all the equipment out to Dry Lake in the middle of Nevada. The challenges were completely different whether it was daytime or nighttime. So the daytime challenges had a lot to do with a tremendous amount of wind out there and a lot of dust. And at nighttime, obviously, there's no light in the middle of the desert. So we had to get generators. We had a motorhome out there full of equipment and power that we could plug into. We had all our cameras, our lights, our equipment. We had to set up a whole bunch of scenes out in the desert. We had fuel tanks to fill up the generators. We had a motorhome, multiple different vehicles, including the DeLorean was out there. Bob, his wife, the whole cast, they weren't just sitting there. Everybody kind of pitched in and we all helped each other out. So that was something that we really enjoyed doing. Ready? Action. On top of that, we had our drone out there, and that was something that was a big challenge in the day because we wanted to get some really kick-ass drone shots of the DeLorean, but we had to fight this extreme wind out in the desert. So that was a little bit of a challenge at times because we didn't have a big drone because we were traveling with it. Plus, we had to stay within regulations. So the smaller the drone, the better it is. Otherwise, you get in trouble, and we had to really do with what we had.
Hi, I'm Biff. This is Marty.
Another big point about equipment and all that is traveling with all that stuff. So it's not just a question of having the cameras, the lights, the batteries, all that stuff. Batteries is a big thing when you're traveling. It's a huge component of all the equipment. You got to carry so many batteries, especially if you're going somewhere where there's nowhere to plug in. How to bring all this effectively and make sure we had everything we needed, because once we would be in certain places, that's all we had. So it was really important to make sure that we had all our equipment and enough food, enough water, you know, anything we needed for the whole crew and the team while we were out there. And one of the biggest challenges as well was bringing the DeLorean time machine out in the desert on the Dry Lake, because there are no roads that lead to the Dry Lake. The way to get to the Dry Lake was pretty much off-road. So we went off-roading with a DeLorean time machine prior to getting to the lake. So let me tell you, that was one hell of a trip.
I've got Mario in the back and the greatest chauffeur ever.
Also, when we traveled to Oregon, it was important to spend a lot of time with Bob to film him doing just regular stuff that he does every day, whether those things were regular house chores or responsibilities that they have, him and his wife, with the barn, the horses, the animals, or him in his lab doing some really cool work that he did every single day in there. And there was like different sections of the lab where he had different projects going on. That was super interesting to film Bob in his element, where you could really see that that's exactly what he loves to do when he's working with uranium here. He's working with specific laser equipment on one other side of the lab, and he's creating really cool scientific projects that I can't get into in some cases in other parts of the lab. So that was really fun to be there and to see that happen and to be able to film it and spend time with Bob in those environments. Also, while we were out in Oregon, we had the opportunity to film with a fan. This is somebody who had reached out to us quite a while back, and he was really excited about Project Gravator, what we were doing with Bob. And this particular person is struggling with a very serious health issue. It turned out that he didn't live very far away from where Bob lives, so we arranged to all meet together out in Oregon. We had a beautiful day together and we filmed with him, so that's also going to be in the film, and you'll probably like to see that piece. It's also important to know that Bob was not invited to testify at the congressional hearing, but to be there in attendance. But the fact that he was already scheduled to come to Montreal and film with us made him take the plane to Montreal and not to Washington, D.C. That was really interesting when he told us that. So while we were in Montreal, we had an opportunity to really do a lot of different types of scenarios with Bob, and a lot of them also had to do with the green screen. So we set up a gigantic green environment in the studio, which was sufficiently large for him to be walking, whether it be from one side of the studio to the other, or even coming towards us. We had the green screen come all the way towards the camera area. So that allowed us to have a tremendous amount of volume area where Bob was essentially mimicking being out at Papoose Lake while they were doing the test of the craft, or if he was inside the hangar looking at the craft, explaining what he was looking at. So that was certainly one of the best filming environments that we had him in. And that's gonna also be translated into our film, where you're actually gonna see Bob Lazar at S4 inside our VFX scenes. Another great thing is when Bob came to Montreal, obviously we had a lot of people that wanted to meet Bob. And one of those people was George St. Pierre. I was able to arrange through a very good friend of mine who's a producer. Her name is Guylaine Marois. She does a lot of work here in Quebec and in Canada. So when Guylaine reached out to GSP to invite him, apparently he was really happy and really excited to meet Bob Lazar. So that was something that I was kind of happy that his response was really positive. He wanted to meet him, and I'll never forget when he showed up and he said, you know, if I would have been asked to meet anybody in the world, he says Bob Lazar would have been the first on my list, which was really amazing. They kind of now communicate. I've connected them, and now they've kind of become friends, which is a really cool thing. So overall, it's been an incredible success, in our opinion, of all the stuff that we've accomplished in the last 3 years in terms of production. We have over 30 hours of footage with Bob, which we're selecting for our documentary, and we really cannot wait to show you guys what this is going to be all about.